When our family faced drastic changes, I accompanied my parents to the harshest and most laborious farm, leaving me with a body full of injuries and illnesses. After my father regained his respected position as a military district commander, my sister became the one my parents felt most guilty towards in their hearts. Kira, it's all because Dad was powerless back then. The only way to protect you during the exile was to sever ties with you. Can you forgive me, Kira? It wasn't easy for Mom to say those harsh words before leaving. It was all forced by circumstances. Can you understand? During my 15 years in the countryside, I had long transformed from the privileged daughter of a military district commander into a weather-beaten rural woman. Even the fiancé who had vowed before I left, Dina, I'll wait for you to return and then marry you, ended up favoring my fair-skinned, educated, and beautiful elder sister. Dina, let's call off the engagement. I'm a university graduate, and you didn't even finish high school. We're not a good match. He immediately turned to my parents to propose to my sister, who was also a university graduate, and received everyone's blessings. At the wedding banquet, I was seated in the farthest corner, listening to idle gossip all day long, until, little sister, actually, back when Dad was injured, I did receive your plea for help, and later, it was me who deliberately got close to Reese, making him fall for me. I caused a scene at my sister's wedding banquet, telling our parents the truth, but no one believed me. Dad ordered the guards to tie me up in the storage room. Dina, you're so unreasonable. Why would you make trouble at your sister and Reese's wedding? Dina, you've disappointed me so much. Don't you understand that a girl should have self-respect? If Reese doesn't like you, you have to break off the engagement. Your sister and he are in love, so you must bless them. Do you understand? While my sister and my fiancé became a happy couple, I was left neglected in a dark and cramped storage room. To teach me a lesson, they deliberately ignored me for 7 days. My body had already been worn out from the farm labor. How could I possibly endure being locked up for 7 days with only a cup of foul-smelling water and a stale cold bun each day? On the afternoon of the 7th day, when the guard was ordered to release me, all he found was my lifeless body with blue-purple lips. Having coughed up blood and died, when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time before my father was sent down. Once again, I saw my father in his crisp military uniform, full of vigor, the same father who was always stern and unsmiling at home, alongside my gentle and graceful mother. What are you spacing out for? Your mother has already prepared the meal. Come and eat. Dina, you don't look well. Are you feeling unwell? It took me a while to pull my thoughts away from the pain of coughing up blood and the suffocating sensation of my lungs struggling to draw in fresh air. I pressed my lips together and shook my head, trying my best not to meet my parents' gaze. I was afraid I couldn't conceal the deep-seated hatred for them that was etched into my bones. Clearly, I was the one who had accompanied them through the toughest years, so why did they treat me this way? If it weren't for me sharing the back-breaking farm work with them, how could the two of them, already advanced in age, have held on until the day of their rehabilitation? What was the result? I, who had given everything for them, became the stain they couldn't wait to erase after their rehabilitation. How could I not hate them? Why are you only eating rice and not the dishes? Don't you like today's food? Mom thoughtfully picked up a piece of meat with chopsticks and placed it in my bowl, saying gently, being this picky isn't good. You're only 15 this year and still growing. You need to eat more. I responded softly but didn't look up at Mom or touch the food she had given me. Smack, in the quiet room, the sound of chopsticks slapping against the table was especially loud, making my back instantly tremble and my whole body stiffen, frozen in place. But Father showed no mercy and instead scolded me loudly. Others would be grateful just to have food to eat, yet here you are, well-fed and clothed at home, still being picky. Where on earth did you learn such bad habits? You're not allowed to sleep until you finish eating. Tears welled up uncontrollably in my eyes, salty like water gushing from an open faucet, dripping into the bowl of white rice. Although Mom spoiled her child, she never interfered with her husband's discipline. Seeing my pitiful expression, she merely shot Dad a glare from an angle I couldn't see and reminded, "Eat slowly, don't choke." I responded with a and through my tears, quickly finished the bowl of rice that tasted salty with a hint of bitterness. With a heavy heart, I shoved the last bite of vegetables into my mouth, swallowing it without even chewing. Putting down the bowl and chopsticks, I sat up straight, reporting like one of Dad's soldiers. "I'm done eating. May I go back to my room to read?" Dad kept a stern face and swallowed the food in his mouth before responding. Go ahead." I quickly got up and left. But without hesitation, I returned to my room. Behind me, I faintly heard Mom complaining to Dad, "Honestly, if the child doesn't want to eat, then don't force them. Why are you making such a big deal out of it with a child?" There was also Dad's stern voice, "We're a military family, and she's a military child. How can we set an example by wasting the fruits of the laborious hard work? Come on, she's still just a kid. Why so harsh?" The words that followed didn't reach my ears as I quickly walked away. Leaning against the door, I gasped for breath, finally feeling the reality of being alive again, only to be overwhelmed by uncontrollable dry heaves. Just as I was about to vomit, I quickly covered my mouth with my still unmutated, calloused hand. Years of living without enough food or warm clothing have ingrained in me a deep appreciation for every single grain of rice. Besides, this is a psychological issue, not a physical one. If I endure it, it'll pass. If I really vomit, it would be such a waste. Huff. My hand, which had been covering my mouth, dropped weakly. With a pale face, I let out a long sigh and stared blankly at the ceiling. To this day, I still can't understand why my past self ended up in such a miserable state. Tears silently fell from the corners of my eyes as I slowly slid down the door and sat on the cold concrete floor. With my head buried in my knees, I began to sob quietly. It took a long time before I finally stopped. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and, supporting my sore and numb thighs, slowly rose from the ground. Limping to the table, I tremblingly picked up the desk calendar. Since childhood, I've had a habit of crossing out each day's date on the calendar as it passed, a habit that now helps me. Who can no longer distinguish the years and months? July 26, 1970. Good. There's still a week before my parents are sent down, and 4 more days before they receive the news. That's plenty of time for me to prepare. As for reading, with both my parents about to be sent down, it won't solve the crisis. And I won't have a chance to use what I learn later anyway. There's no need to rush it now. I casually stuffed the book into my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out. "Mom, I'm going to study with Li Huan." "Okay, come back early." Li Huan is my classmate, her home is close to mine, and we get along well, so I often go to her place to hang out. My mom knows about this, so she's quite at ease. Okay. One of Li Huan's distant aunts worked in the neighborhood committee and was in charge of the educated youth going to the countryside program. At this time, most families were reluctant to send their children to the countryside, so her work was extremely difficult to carry out. I had already graduated from junior high school and met the requirements for going to the countryside, so I decided to proactively apply for it. "Dina, are you sure you want to apply to be an educated youth in the countryside? This is no joke. Once it's approved, there's no turning back. I am certain that now is the time when the country needs knowledgeable and capable young intellectuals like us to go to the countryside and contribute to the nation's development. We should actively respond to the call of the country. Please let your cousin know that I hope the matter can be settled within 3 days. Dina, your awareness is truly commendable. Mentioning it won't be a problem. My cousin has been worried lately about the insufficient number of educated youth and the approaching deadline for going to the countryside. With you taking the initiative to apply, forget 3 days. She could get it done for you in just 1 day tomorrow." "Well, thank you. Let's make it tomorrow then. There's one more thing I need your help with." As I spoke, I opened my school bag and glanced furtively at the door. Then from the very bottom of my bag, I pulled out a small packet of candies that I hadn't even been willing to eat myself, and carefully placed all of them into Li Huan's arms. "I hope you won't tell my parents about this. I want to give them a surprise. As you know, my father is someone who deeply loves the party and our country. If he knew his daughter had such high ideological awareness, he would be overjoyed." Li Huan looked at the candy in her hand with delight. In these times of scarcity, obtaining even a small amount of sugar was no easy feat. and with multiple children in her family, they had never been so well off before. She touched it repeatedly, unwrapped the paper, picked out one piece to tuck into her pocket, and reluctantly returned the rest to me. "No problem, such a small matter is just a word away. You don't need to give me so much. One piece is enough," I smiled. After all, I wasn't really a brat under 16 anymore. Mentally, I had long passed the age of craving sweets. I swiftly stuffed the candy packet into her pocket, covering it to prevent her from taking it out, and feigned anger as I said, "If you still consider me a friend, then accept it. My sister has gone off to college, and now I'm the only child at home. I have plenty, so don't stand on ceremony with me." In truth, Li Huan knew full well that my situation was far from as good as I made it out to be. Dad cares about face and believes that children of military families should learn to endure hardship. These candies were secretly bought for me by Mom behind Dad's back. She looked at me for a long time, making sure I wouldn't take the candy back, before reluctantly agreeing. "All right, I'll keep it here for you. You can come get it whenever you want." I shook my head. "I know your younger siblings like to rummage through your things. If you don't want them to benefit, you'd better eat it quickly." Li Huan and I were in similar situations, both being the neglected ones in our families, which was one of the reasons we got along so well. I was overshadowed by my sister's excellence. In my parents' eyes, she was all they ever saw. Where was my place? Li Huan, on the other hand, as the eldest daughter in her family, was naturally expected by the adults to help take care of her younger siblings and share the household chores. Early the next morning, after breakfast, I went to Li Huan's house, where she was already waiting at the door. "You came just in time. Let's go now. Auntie should already be at work." "Great." Once we walked out of the compound and reached a deserted stretch of road, Li Huan carefully took out a slightly melted candy from her pocket and said, "Here." After taking it, I noticed she didn't seem to have another one for herself, so I didn't rush to eat it, just one. "What about yours?" A fleeting look of discomfort crossed Li Huan's face, but she quickly smiled again. "I've already had mine. This one's specially for you." I could tell at a glance that she wasn't telling the truth. So without another word, I stuffed the candy into her mouth. I really, already ate." The muffled voice came from Li Huan's mouth as she glanced at her hand, seemingly considering whether to spit it out and if I would still want it. With a stern expression, I said, "Don't you dare spit it out. I'm not eating your saliva." After Li Huan gave up on this idea, I took her hand and rolled up her sleeve. Sure enough, I saw bruises of blue and purple overlapping. I knew these must have been from her mother hitting her with a feather duster. My nose tingled with a slight ache, and I nearly shed tears. "I'm sorry. It's all my fault for not thinking things through properly and getting you beaten." Li Huan quickly pressed my hand and pulled her sleeve back down, not wanting me to see and feel sad. "Dina, it's not your fault. It's all on me for not listening to you and hiding the candy, which my younger siblings then found. Don't be upset. It doesn't hurt, really. I'm already used to it." I recalled what I had learned after my father's rehabilitation in my previous life, and my heart tightened at the thought. Although Li Huan stayed in the city, her family didn't let her continue high school and sent her straight to work to earn money. Just 1 year before I returned with my parents, Li Huan's younger brother was getting married, and to help cover the bride price, her family married her off to a butcher. The butcher had a violent temper and often beat his wife. Li Huan was beaten by the butcher until she miscarried at 6 months pregnant. By the time she was brought to the hospital, it was already too late. I grabbed Li Huan's hand and said with the most resolute tone I could muster, "Li Huan, come with me to the countryside. Ask your aunt to arrange for us to be assigned to the same rural village. From then on, we'll be like real sisters." Li Huan's eyes lit up for a moment, but quickly dimmed again. "It's no use. My parents would never agree. If I leave, my mother won't be able to handle all the housework alone, and there'll be no one to take care of my younger siblings." I cupped her face in my hands, turning it toward me, and looking straight into her eyes, I said slowly and deliberately, "Li Huan, you're just a child yourself, not much older than your younger siblings. Think about it. Weren't you already washing your own clothes and helping Mom with household chores at their age? Even without you, they're capable of taking care of themselves. You need to give them a chance to grow, an opportunity to help ease mom's burden just like you did. Or do you plan to support them for their entire lives? Li Huan went from deep in thought to vehement denial, shaking her head and hands so vigorously they became a blur. No, no, no. I'm going to get married and take care of my own family in the future, besides supporting my parents in their old age. How could I possibly take care of my younger siblings for their entire lives? After speaking, she guiltily glanced back at the path she'd come from, as if afraid her words might be overheard by others. I placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Don't worry, I've been keeping watch. There's nobody around. As Li Huan breathed a sigh of relief, I shattered her beautiful illusions about the future. Li Huan, unless you can stand up to your parents and make them treat you and your siblings equally in the future, what I've said will inevitably become reality. No, no, Mom and Dad love me. My younger siblings are just too little right now. I have no habit of forcing others, much less the inclination to pressure friends. One must always take responsibility for the decisions they make. I cannot change the fate of someone who doesn't want to change. Excessive interference will only ruin the friendship in the end. Because of our family ties, Li Huan directly took me to see her cousin's aunt. Cousin's aunt, hey, isn't this Xiao Huan? Come on in, find yourself a seat, make yourself at home. No, I came to ask for your help with something today. Oh, what is it? Why didn't your parents come? Li Huan stepped aside and pushed me in front of our aunt. This classmate of mine just graduated from junior high and wants to go to the countryside. Didn't you say not long ago that there weren't enough educated youths? She'd be perfect. Upon hearing this, Auntie immediately stood up with enthusiasm, the look of distress on her face vanishing in an instant, making her appear several years younger. Come, come, young student, have a seat. I'll get you a glass of water, and we can chat slowly. The situation was much as Li Huan had described. Auntie was indeed troubled by the insufficient number of educated youths willing to go to the countryside. The office was so empty because everyone else had gone out to do mobilization work, and today was her turn to stay and man the office. While I was filling out the application form, Li Huan revealed the confidential matter on my behalf. Aunt hesitated slightly. Young student, what if your parents disagree later? Once this form is submitted and the list is finalized, it cannot be changed. I stopped filling out the form, looked up, and flashed a bright smile. Auntie, don't worry, my father is a regimental commander in the army, and his ideological awareness is very high. He taught me from a young age that, as the child of a soldier, I should love my country and have the spirit to strive for the interests of the nation and its people. If I report it, he would only feel proud of me once he knows. Then what are you hiding? Tell them sooner so they can prepare. Although it's said to be going to the countryside for re-education, they wouldn't stop parents from preparing more for their children, just in case. After all, the educated youth were all ambitious young people who voluntarily applied to go to the countryside. And they deserved preferential treatment. It's not like they were being sent down as punishment for making mistakes. I shook my head firmly. Going to the countryside was about responding to the nation's call to receive re-education, not to live a life of comfort. There's no need for so much preparation. I'm confident I can overcome any challenges on my own. My aunt was extremely satisfied with my answer and readily agreed. Good, what a fine child. Truly worthy of being a soldier's offspring. Your parents would be proud of you. As I was packing my bags to go to the countryside, an old comrade of my father's knocked on our door. Something terrible has happened. You've been reported, and the relocation order will likely arrive in a few days. How could this happen? Father escorted my distraught mother out of the room and stayed up late into the night talking with his comrade alone. Mom came to my room and held me, crying until midnight. Dina, what are we going to do from now on? Your sister is still in college, and who knows if this will affect her. Mom, I just graduated from middle school, anyway. There's no college entrance exam now. Even your sister's college spot was hard-earned by your dad. Going to high school would be useless for you. Tilda, in my past life, seeing how sad Mom was, I considerately never mentioned a word about myself, so this is what Mom was thinking. If someone of your father's rank is being demoted, the matter must be serious. We'll definitely be sent to the harshest and most difficult place. What should we do? How are we going to survive all these years? Mom followed Dad in the military and never worked outside. Apart from light household chores and the education of 2 children, she never had to worry about anything else. After many years of peace, Mother began to fear the future. Dina, how could such a thing happen to our family? Your father devoted his whole life to the country. How dare they? Woo-woo. Last year, the Lee family next door was sent down. I heard they had to get up before dawn every day to work. What will become of me in the future? I've heard these words before in my past life, and hearing them again still hurts. In my previous life, I worried that my parents were too old to survive these turbulent times. This time, I only want to live for myself. All I think about is how to make them willingly let me go to the countryside. After all, I don't want to be the fool twice. My sister and I are both their children. Why do they only ever consider her? I didn't comfort Mom. Just let her hold me as she spoke of her fears and poured out the bitterness of being sent down, wiping all her tears and snot on my clothes. Everyone come out. We need to have a meeting. After Dad saw off his comrade-in-arms, he knocked on my door. I shook awake Mom, who had cried herself to sleep. Mom, Dad wants us to come out for a meeting. The whole family sat together in the main hall for the first time at midnight. The hall was drafty, and the cold night wind made my heart sink straight down. Regarding my situation, I'll try my best to pull some strings tomorrow and make one last effort. The same opening line as in my previous life. Yet my state of mind was entirely different now. In my previous life, the admiration and reverence I had for my father's military identity were completely shattered when he treated me and my sister differently after his rehabilitation. With the memories of an extra lifetime, I knew all too well that this time, being sent down was inevitable, and no amount of connections would change that. Later, his rehabilitation was only possible because policies changed, and with the help of his old superiors. He managed to clear his name, provided he was still alive. I lowered my head, staring at the table, pretending to listen attentively, not letting him see the complex and indescribable emotions in my eyes. Now it's about you and your sister. Your sister was in college but dropped out halfway. And now our family has lost its last chance to rise above, so I've decided to publicly sever our father-daughter relationship in the newspaper. That way, my issues won't affect her anymore, Mom chimed in. That's right. Kira is now our family's greatest hope for success. We can't drag her down. Dad looked straight at me. Dina. I looked up and met his gaze, my eyes deliberately brimming with tears, my lips pursed in a pitiful expression. Dad Tilda. Dad's stern and resolute expression wavered for a moment but quickly returned to normal. Your mother and I are getting older. We don't want to face illness or emergencies without a single child by our side. You've already graduated from middle school. If the reallocation policy becomes final, I'll apply for you to come with us. Mom's delicate, tearful voice immediately followed. Honey, isn't this a bit too much? Dina's not even 16 yet, coming with us to the countryside. She won't be able to handle it. Even so, I could clearly see the anticipation in her eyes. In my past life, it was precisely because I noticed Mom's expectation, coupled with their deliberate good cop bad cop routine, that I, just a child, couldn't possibly refuse. But the Dina Lee standing before them now is no longer that underage, dependent little girl, and the ones who destroyed all this were themselves. With a single blink, the glistening in my eyes fell like scattered pearls, sliding continuously from the corners of my eyes, tracing across my frost-pale cheeks, before finally dripping from my chin. Thanks to my sister's personal coaching after returning to the city in my past life, I had already mastered the art of crying in a way that would most effectively evoke my parents' pity. I knew exactly what angle to hold my face under the overhead light so that the tears rolling down my cheeks would reflect the light into the eyes of those around me, maximizing their sympathy. Mom, Dad Tilda. I clearly saw a momentary softening in Dad's expression, but it quickly hardened again. Precisely because she's so young and a girl, how can I feel at ease letting her be alone outside? Dina Lee. As the child of a military family, you must have the same resolve as a soldier. You can't be afraid of hardship or fatigue, understand? It's the first time I've realized how hypocritical my father's education was. Such nonsense could only fool a naive child like me who hasn't seen much of the world. If enduring hardship is so important, why didn't they make my sister go through the same re-education with them? Isn't she also the child of military personnel? Why do they get to demand that I follow them and endure hardships on their behalf just because they're older? They call it concern, saying I'm too young for them to feel at ease. They take all the credit while doing none of the work. Am I just supposed to suffer in their place? Or is it simply that they don't love me? My heart grew firm again, and I cried even harder. What are you crying for? Your sister isn't like you. She's been obedient and sensible since she was little. If you were even half as well behaved as her, your mother and I wouldn't have to worry so much. The child is just confused for the moment. Don't be so harsh on her. Be good, Dina. You know Mom can't bear to part with you the most. Just come with Mom and Dad. We'll protect you, having experienced it once before. Dina didn't believe a word of it. I didn't argue with my parents, just cried my way back to my room, closing the door. I collapsed into bed. Tomorrow was going to be another tough battle to fight. In my dream, I returned to the early days on the farm. Under the guise of training, Dad made me split the farm's assigned tasks equally with him, so Mom could live comfortably under our protection. But how could there be any comparison? He was a regiment commander with decades of military experience, while I was a girl under 16 without any professional training. Often, when Dad finishes his work, I still have a lot left to do. He doesn't help but just watches from the side, supervising me until I finish. If I return late, Mom nags at me and scolds. It's all because you spoiled her. Such a small task took her so long to finish. At times like these, Mom seems to have amnesia, completely forgetting the fact that I'm still a minor, and joins Dad in criticizing me. Dina, the farm is not like the military compound. You should learn to adapt and not be afraid of hardship. You should learn from your sister. She never complains. Of course I don't complain, because Kira Lee has never experienced what I'm going through, but I know it's useless to say anything. It would only bring more scolding, and I'm already exhausted. Not long after, Dad got injured. But the farm's medical resources were scarce, and we were at the bottom of the priority list. I sent out letter after letter, hoping my sister, who was very successful at the time, could help find a solution. But not a single reply came back. I could only take on most of the farm work while my mother wept, using the meager anti-inflammatory medicine I begged for by banging my head to treat my father's wounds. In a short time, I was forced to grow up quickly and become the family's pillar, collapsing from exhaustion several times. The farm management, fearing they'd be held accountable if someone died and perhaps moved by my pitiful state and filial devotion, agreed to call a barefoot doctor to treat my father's injuries. But the first thing my father did upon waking was slap me across the face. He was originally a military man, and despite having just woken up and still being weak, my face remained swollen for 3 days. You wretched thing. Who told you to write to your sister? Are you afraid of hardship, so you want to drag your sister down with you? And don't you know your mother's health is poor? How could you bear to make her do so much work? So unfilial. Hartilda, so he knew all along that coming with him meant suffering and misery. I looked at my mother with a sorrowful expression. Mom, haven't I done more than you? Shouldn't we all face difficulties together? Instead, I received another slap from my father. You ungrateful little brat. Is this how I raised you? Can't you see your mother's hands are worn out? She was already in poor health. What if? How could you live with yourself? After that, I never tended to his injuries when my father was sober again, letting my mother boil medicine and change his dressings for him. Every day I go out to finish my share of work and then return home, letting the supervisors come to question my mother who refuses to work. My father, who deeply loves his wife, forced himself to go out and work, unwilling to let my mother suffer. He only stopped when he collapsed and was carried back home. Later, my mother started doing her share of work every day, but she became much colder toward me. It wasn't until my father recovered that we returned to the same state as when we first arrived at the farm. Waking up, I felt like the sleep was worse than not sleeping at all. I was even more exhausted. While we were having breakfast, Aunt Li Huan came to our door. Regimental Commander Li. I'm here to inform you that your daughter has been selected for this batch of educated youth to go to the countryside. She will depart in 2 days. You've raised a fine daughter." "What?" Dad's expression and tone were far from pleasant, startling Aunt Li Huan into retreating several steps with a stiff smile before she managed to stop. "What, aren't you happy? The child is following national policy, thoughtful and aware, a good kid. Do you not support them because you think there's something wrong with national policy?" Already in a sensitive moment, Dad absolutely wouldn't allow such an accusation to be pinned on him. He quickly reined in his intimidating demeanor, his voice neither gentle nor stern, carrying an awkward, unnatural tone. "No, it's a good thing that the child has such awareness. I couldn't be happier. How could I possibly think it's bad?" Aunt Li Huan finally smiled. "That's more like it. You've really raised this child well." Knowing that many people don't understand the policy these days, she took the initiative to cooperate with us the other day. Dad's expression darkened again, and Mom shot me an accusatory look. I quickly stood up and walked over to Aunt Li Huan. "Auntie, aside from letting me know the departure time, is there anything else you came here for?" Seeing my gaze fixed on the bag in her hand, she suddenly realized and said, "Oh right. The child is about to go to the countryside, so the parents need to sign this." As she spoke, she pulled out the documents from the bag, even preparing a pen. "Regiment Commander Lee, please take a look and sign if everything is in order." Dad looked at it for a long time but refused to sign. Aunt Li Huan urged them several times, but Mom still said, "No rush. This concerns our child after all. We need to be careful." I took the initiative to speak as Dad's frown deepened. "Dad, didn't you say last night that you had important business to attend to today? It's getting late." Dad looked at me deeply with a scrutinizing gaze. "When did you decide on this matter? Why didn't you inform us beforehand?" Before I could even answer, Aunt Li Huan spoke up for me. "The child came to me 4 days ago, saying they wanted to wait until it was all settled to give you a surprise. Director Lee is capable himself. And who would have thought the child he raised would be so thoughtful? Truly something to celebrate. If this had been said before last night, my dad would have been over the moon. But now, under my mom's nearly tearful gaze and the scrutinizing look of Aunt Li Huan, who seemed to imply that refusing to sign would show a lack of awareness or even questioning of the policy, he signed his name with bold, decisive strokes. Signed, "We need to speak with the child alone, so we won't see you out." Aunt Li Huan looked at my dad, then at me, and said with some concern, "Regimental Commander Lee, you're an important figure in the military with high ideological awareness. Surely you wouldn't hit a child, right?" Dad's face darkened. "When did I ever say I was going to hit a child?" Aunt Li Huan thought to herself. "Your expression clearly says you're about to hit the child. If I couldn't even spot that, how could I work at the neighborhood committee?" I quickly stopped Aunt Li Huan before she could speak. "Auntie, don't worry. I'll definitely arrive at the meeting point on time in 2 days. You go back first. If I don't show up, just go to the military district and find my dad's superior." I escorted the cheerful Aunt Li Huan out. Dad didn't expect me to say that, and his face darkened as he watched my retreating figure. The moment Aunt Li Huan's footsteps crossed the threshold, Mom could no longer hold back, and tears began to stream down her face. "Dina Lee, you better explain to me properly why you suddenly applied to be an educated youth sent to the countryside. Did you already know something bad was going to happen at home?" I found it amusing. Even a military regiment commander only found out about it yesterday. How could I, a powerless little girl, have known anything in advance? "Dad, you heard it too. I signed up 4 days ago. I genuinely wanted to respond to the national policy. To bring honor to you, to Mom, and to our family." I spoke with genuine emotion, but my parents didn't believe a word of it. Mom cried and grabbed my arm. But how could it be such a coincidence? "Dina, just tell me the truth. Did you do this on purpose because you didn't want to suffer with us during the relocation?" "Don't worry, we're not authoritarian parents. If you tell the truth, we definitely won't blame you." Suddenly, I realized that in my past life, my vision had been clouded by family affection, and I had truly overlooked so many things. For example, Mom and sister are so alike. Every word seems to be for my sake, yet every word is actually digging a pit for me. Sure enough, the next moment, Father's furious voice came from ahead. "Dina Lee, you've gone too far. We are your parents, we raised you, and yet you went behind our backs to sign up for the rural assignment just to escape us. Do you even have a conscience?" I didn't engage with them emotionally. Instead, I kept repeating that joining the educated youth movement was about responding to national policy, and finally turned the question back on them. "So, Mom and Dad, do you really think there's an issue with the national policy? Or if you feel I wasn't accurate enough, I can call that auntie back to explain it to you again." This left them completely speechless. "I'll deal with you later," I immediately followed up. "Dad, I hope you can treat me and my sister equally. Otherwise, if I can't go to the countryside, someone might question whether you're doubting the national policy and deliberately obstructing me from going. If word gets out, it could harm your reputation. Although it's the same sent-down policy, there's still a lot of room for maneuvering in terms of the location. With a better reputation and more cooperation, the assigned location could also be more favorable." Dad ched and hurriedly walked away. I wasn't in the mood to go back and listen to Mom's sobbing, so I simply went to Li Huan's house to hang out with her. I tried to persuade Li Huan a bit more, but she remained hesitant. However, when it came to signing up, she firmly refused, so I told her the location of my rural assignment. "If you ever feel wronged, write to me. If it becomes unbearable, just sign up for rural work like I did. Trust me, if you can't change the current situation, going to the countryside is your only way out now. In an era before the reform and opening up, when even leaving home required an introduction letter, how could a young girl like her escape this suffocating household without relying on national policies? Alright, I'll remember. If you lack anything in the countryside or face any hardships, you can also write to me. It's settled, just like countless times in our childhood." Li Huan and I pinky promised and sealed it with a stamp. After staying at Li Huan's place for about an hour, I said my goodbyes and left. With memories from my past life, I knew exactly which newspaper my father had approached. When I arrived, I happened to see my father's military vehicle driving away. I immediately identified myself upon entering. "I'm the daughter of Colonel Lee who just asked you to publish the notice. My name is Dina Lee. My father sent me to revise the article for publication, but Colonel Lee just left. How do I know you're not lying?" Anyway, I wasn't lying, and there were ways to make him believe me. I successfully changed my father's upcoming disownment declaration to include both me and my sister before lunchtime. By the time my father saw it, it was too late, and he had no choice but to let me leave with the rural assignment team. Since I had volunteered for the rural assignment, and my father hadn't gotten into trouble when the location was being arranged, I was sent to a relatively prosperous area where the villagers were not too difficult to get along with. After staying at the educated youth outpost for 2 years, around the same time as in my previous life, I received news of my father's injury. We have publicly severed ties. So naturally the farm where they were sent wouldn't proactively relay any news to me. I don't know what methods or connections my mother used, but she managed to send me 3 letters in a row. I immediately handed over the letters, stating, "Comrade Lee and his wife publicly disowned me 2 years ago in the newspaper." I have no idea how these letters reached me. Although some secretly criticized me for being cold-hearted, the majority supported my actions. Anyone with a bit of sense clearly knows that my parents were sent down due to political mistakes, even if I wanted to do something. How much power could an educated youth like me have when even high-ranking officials in the city might not dare to intervene? After this incident, some people distanced themselves from me, while others grew closer. I think it's for the best. I don't need friends who don't approve of my actions. I have the experience of an extra lifetime. During those 2 years in the countryside, I endured more hardships than other educated youths. Long illness makes the patient a doctor. In my past life, to take care of my father, I learned some basic medical knowledge from a barefoot doctor. Over time, the village doctor came to know that I had some understanding of medical principles. He had me assist him and even shared his treasured medical books with me. At first, I had to finish my work before I could go to him. Later, the barefoot doctor recognized my medical skills and negotiated with the village to have me officially work in the village clinic, earning work points. I received my mother's letter shortly after I started working at the clinic. The village was poor, lacking medical resources and even more so, doctors. The village was unwilling to lose a doctor they had worked so hard to train. After I submitted the letter, they promptly reported it to higher authorities and completely distanced themselves from the matter. In my second year as a barefoot doctor, there was a recommended spot in the village for attending a workers', peasants', and soldiers' university. The village head called me to his home alone and asked, "I heard you've completely cut ties with your family. What are your plans for the future?" Having already heard the news, I naturally thought of this university opportunity. I pondered for a moment. More than 3 years had passed since I was sent to the countryside, and the reinstatement of the college entrance examination was still about 4 years away. Anyway, I don't plan to return to the city anymore. There's nothing left there worth my attachment. Might as well agree to it and save myself the trouble of taking exams. As long as the village still needs me, I won't leave here until I've trained a successor more capable than myself. This means making this place my home. The village chief was very satisfied, mainly because there were no eligible young men in their village. Otherwise, who would give such an opportunity to an educated youth? Not long after, through the village's recommendation, I went to the Worker Peasant Soldier University to study in the medical department, where I stayed for 3.5 years. After graduation, I returned to the village as promised. Here, I met Li Huan, who had come to the countryside 6 months earlier. We were both very happy, and within just a few words, the unfamiliarity from years of not being together melted away. She became even prettier as she grew up. But after enduring the wind and rain in the countryside, she had tanned quite a bit, though she also became stronger. I followed her back to the educated youth settlement. After putting our things down, we started preparing food while sharing our experiences over the years. My parents wanted to marry me off to a butcher to get a dowry for my brother's wedding, so I begged my aunt to arrange for me to join the educated youth team. "You did the right thing. Don't worry, as long as we stand by reason. We can go anywhere. No one will ever take advantage of you again." After I returned, I urged Li Huan to pick up the knowledge she had learned before and even bought her high school study materials. Who knows, the national college entrance exams might be reinstated one day. There's no harm in studying. Li Huan didn't understand, but she was obedient. Since I told her to study, she dutifully did so. After studying for half a year, the national college entrance exams were indeed reinstated. Li Huan signed up but failed to pass, but with my encouragement, she continued preparing for the exams, ready to try again. After failing twice, she successfully got into university. Perhaps influenced by me, she chose the same medical department as I did. But she got in entirely on her own merit, and the university she could attend was better than the one I went to. The year I trained a successor more capable than myself was also the year Li Huan graduated. She gave up the opportunity to work at a major hospital and voluntarily requested to be assigned to a county hospital closest to me. I felt quite comfortable staying in the village, so I didn't agree to Li Huan's suggestion of working at the county hospital. Instead, I used my savings from those years to secure a homestead plot in the village, preparing to officially settle down there. In 1985, the year of my previous life's death, was also the year my parents were rehabilitated and spoiled my sister rotten. 2 uninvited guests arrived in the village: my sister, who lived a glamorous, princess-like life in our past life, and Risi, my former fiancé, who was as radiant as the moon and refined in appearance. As I looked at the disheveled, sunburnt man and woman standing at the village entrance, more unkempt than the villagers, I felt momentarily dazed. My sister was very excited the moment she saw me. "Dina, your parents are both dead. It shouldn't have been like this. Why didn't you go to the countryside with Mom and Dad back then? If you had gone with them, I would now be the daughter of a military district commander, the envy of everyone, a young lady of high status. Why is everything so different?" I was slightly stunned and didn't dodge my sister's scratching nails. My hands, neck, face, any exposed skin was scratched. It seems my sister has also awakened memories from her past life. "Kira, calm down. Didn't we come to discuss Dad's rehabilitation with Dina?" "Sorry, Dina." Kira is a bit emotional. The trauma she endured on the farm these years has made her emotions hard to control. I learned about my sister's and Reese's experiences over the years from his own words. Back then, when I turned in the letters, my sister, who shares the same parents as me, was naturally also investigated. Letters that hadn't been destroyed in time were found in her residence. Later, she went to the farm to accompany our parents and didn't even get her college diploma. Upon hearing this, Reese, disregarding his family's objections, gave up his studies and his family, and without hesitation, went to the farm to accompany my sister. For the first time in my life, I realized that Reese had changed his heart so early on. Just in their second year at the farm, Dad still passed away due to an infected wound. Unable to bear the immense gap left by Dad's death and the heavy farm work, Mom took her own life 3 months after Dad passed away. Upon learning of my parents' deaths, I didn't invite them to my small courtyard. I simply said, "They're already gone. What's the use of rehabilitation now? As you can see, I'm just an ordinary barefoot doctor in the countryside, with no ability to help my father, a regimental commander in the army. Clear his name. You've come to the wrong person." Although Reese held his sister back from going crazy, his gaze at me was full of disappointment. "Dina, you've changed. You weren't such a selfish and cold person before." The warm, kind, and sincere me had long been killed by all of you in my past life. I owe nothing to anyone, not even my parents. Don't think they want anything special. It's just about claiming the compensation for parents who've been sent down for years and basking in the glory of being the regimental commander's daughter. They want me to help, yet they won't even tell me the truth. Even if my brain were filled with 10 pounds of seawater, I wouldn't be foolish enough to agree. I turned around and left. In the evening, the villagers brought my sister, who was left alone and appeared to be in a state of madness, to the gate of my small courtyard. I didn't let anyone enter the house and said calmly, "Call the police, she's already married." Her husband abandoning her in her mentally unstable condition is also against the law. After being penalized, Reese reluctantly took her back home. A year later, Reese came to my door again, saying, "Dina, your sister has died." I just froze for a moment, feeling not the slightest hint of sadness. Oh, last time my sister came over, I could see that aside from her mental issues, her physical health was also in serious decline. At just over 30, in what should be the prime of life, her face already bore the signs of exhaustion and decline. Reese was the same, though his better physical condition made him appear slightly better. "But it's only a matter of a few years now. That's the last family you have left in this world." I ignored it and walked away. "Dina, if I had kept my promise and waited for you back then, could we have been very happy together? Dina, I heard you're still unmarried. Do we still have a chance?" I stopped in my tracks. "Reese, one must always look forward, never back. Because there's no turning back." Without glancing back at him, I walked away.